as Jyotish was saying, we have had the wonderful opportunity for all of our adult life to be under the spiritual training of Swami Kriyanandaji, who was a direct disciple of our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. And it says in the holy writings of India that when the soul is interested in spiritual teachings, first God will bring them some books. They can read those books. But if they're still not satisfied, then God will bring that person some teachers, some people to show them. But if that still isn't enough, then God will bring that soul to the feet of a true guru, a Satguru. And it is only through association with enlightened masters that true spiritual growth really happens. And in our own lives, I know, watching the example of Swami Kriyananda and seeing him in many different situations, difficult, fulfilling, rewarding, and watching the ability to never lose a sense of inner peace was one of the greatest gifts of my life, the greatest forms of learning and education I ever had. This is just a simple and amusing example, but once Swamiji and a small group of us were driving up into the mountains, and Swami used to be a skier at that point in his life, and he wanted to go skiing up in the mountains. So Swami was driving the car, and there were a number of us riding in the car. And as we got higher into the mountains, this was in California, it began to snow. And the snow was coming down harder and harder, and the pass that we were going to cross was closed. And so Swami hit the brakes on the car, but the car went into a big tailspin all across the road, and cars were coming in the other direction. And there was a woman sitting next to me in the back seat, and she got hysterical, and she started screaming, "Swami! Swami!" like that. And he just kept trying to steady the car as it was spinning and spinning, and finally the car crashed into the side of a bus. And the bus got a few little scratches on it. Our car, which was a very old car, used car, the front end was just crushed. Luckily, no one was hurt. But as soon as the car crashed, we came to a stop. This woman had been screaming. Swami turned around and very calmly looked at her and said, "What?" And that little experience just showed me he never lost his center through that whole experience. And to be able to live, to be able to find inner peace, and this is the core of what I'll be sharing in my heart with you today, is to be able to still the mind enough so that you are living in the moment, not the past, not the future, not anticipated pain, not reflected sorrows or losses, but only in the moment. Because in the moment is really all we can ever experience. We can vicariously remember that wonderful time when we got some possession that we were saving up for, or some loss that happened, but that's only memory. It's only in the moment that we really experience life. And the ability to practice meditation helps us to get out of the world of it was or it will be into the world of, as Master, when I say Master, I refer to my Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, Master called the eternal now. That's the only moment we ever can live. And why do we say eternal now? Because in that moment, that one present moment, and even as we've been sitting here in the short time that I've been sharing, how many moments have passed? And how many of those moments was your mind, and I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty, was your mind really attentive to what I was saying? Some of them you were, but many of them I know from my own self. You're thinking, oh, will the chai be ready? Oh, will this happen? But to the extent we do that, we lose our ability to feel the eternal now, which is where God resides, which is where peace lives. And I wanted to share with you a beautiful quote from my guru. Yoganandaji left the body in 1952, but he left a great legacy of writing and speeches and teachings, and of course the great autobiography of a yogi. But I never cease to be surprised. I'll find a quote from him that just, it's like these little rose petals dropping from the heavens in this moment in your life when you need them. So this I found recently. Master says, I was sitting in my room looking back over my life, and I realized that everything in the outer world that had promised great happiness had deceived me. But one thing has never deceived me, my inner peace. As I passed through various life experiences over the years, that unchanging inner peace has been proof to me of the existence of God. Isn't that fascinating? The unchanging inner peace is the proof of the existence of God. Now let's talk about that a bit, because it's something you could really give thought to for a long time. Master also says elsewhere in his teachings that most people circulate, or their minds revolve around 4 stages of awareness of thought. There's excitement, that's the first one, although it's a circular pattern. Excitement, oh, if only I get that new job. Oh, if only my mother makes this good dish for dinner. So it's anticipation. It's out of the moment. And then there's the false happiness, when that excited anticipation is fulfilled. Oh, Amazon came through today. They delivered just what I ordered. Although it doesn't happen most of the time, but nevertheless, that false happiness that comes when our expectation is fulfilled. But then, as Yogananda said, he realized that everything in the world disappointed him, in the outer world. And so you have that for a while. We had a friend in America, who wanted this very fancy car. He was a yogi, but he had that desire. So he saved up his money and saved up his money. Finally, the car arrived at the dealership. He got in it. He told us, do you know how long that car made me happy? Driving from the dealership to getting home. After that, it was just one more thing to worry about. And so the sorrow that comes when we realize it's not what I thought it was going to be. And then, so those are the three of the 4 stages: excitement, false happiness, disappointment or sorrow, and then the last one, Master defined as boredom. When you just say, gosh, I've tried it, it didn't make me happy. I guess there's really nothing very valuable in this life. And he said, and then that lasts for a while. And then you think, oh, but maybe I didn't get the right color of car. And then the whole cycle starts all over again. And Master said you can look at people's faces and see which of those 4 stages they're in at the moment, but they're always circulating in our minds. You could call it the wheel of karma, the wheel of fate, the wheel of reincarnation. And we go through lifetime after lifetime. And the difficulty is that the world reinforces that. The world says, oh, yes, you've had that kind of ice cream, but did you have this ice cream with the chocolate covering? Now that might really make you happy. And so the world keeps trying to always say there's something more that might make you happier. But we need to understand, our Guruji said in Autobiography of a Yogi, and for those of you, I will just ask you, how many of you have read Autobiography of a Yogi? Please raise your hands. Okay, that's a good percentage. If you haven't read it, and I'm not taking names, please read it. And I'm not trying to sell a book. You can go online and get a free download. But it's a book that will change your life. We spoke about it the other night. But Master says in Autobiography of a Yogi, after a certain period of time, this cycle of excitement, and false happiness, and disappointment, and boredom, it takes on an anguishing sense of monotony. And I think most people who are drawn to read Autobiography of a Yogi, there's some memory of that anguishing monotony, whether it was at the moment of death or at the end of our last life, when we just think, I've done this so many times. Isn't there something else? And that's when, in fact, in Patanjali's great Yoga Sutras, which is one of India's great gift to the world, the very first sutra, first aphorism, is, and now we come to the study of the science of yoga. And you can think, all right, so let's start studying the science of yoga. But Sri Yukteswar, our guru's guru, our guru, had Master study that one aphorism for many months. And he said there's such a depth of meaning in there, because and now means at this point in time we come to the study of the science of yoga because we have understood that the outer world ultimately is a disappointment. And now, after all those searchings in many different lifetimes, many different cultures, many different experiences, we say, Lord, there must be something else. And that something else is the experience in the present moment of our own soul nature, which is rooted in a sense of inner peace. There was a beautiful story I heard from the life of the current Dalai Lama. And there was a Tibetan monk who had been imprisoned by the Chinese communists and had been tortured for some time, years in fact. Finally he was released. And he was with the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama said to him, were you ever worried for your life? Were you ever in danger? And the monk said, oh yes, Master. There was a time I felt in danger. And the Dalai Lama said, did you feel you were going to die? And he said, oh no, not that. I was in danger of losing my compassion for the man who was torturing me. And the ability, again, to live in the moment. Not to say, I didn't deserve this, as Jyotish was saying. Why are they doing this? This isn't fair. I want to change this. In the moment, I can find compassion. And that's all we have control of. Swami Kriyananda said most people live their lives either in the past, in regrets, or disappointments, or feelings of loss, or in the future, hopeful expectation. But again, if we can live now. We had a friend who is a beautiful devotee, and she was a married woman, and she and her husband it's a sad story, but important to share. They had had a little bit of an argument, and then he left. He just went off for the day. But then, while he was away, he had a heart attack and died. And the last words they spoke to each other were not kind ones. And she came to Swami Kriyananda and she said, I feel so terrible. We had such deep love for each other, but the last words we shared were words of anger. And Swami looked at her very strongly because she was a high soul. And he said, you must not live in regret. Think only of the happiness that you shared. And to find inner peace, this is a great secret. Everything that has gone behind you in this moment in time, learn from it. Correct your behavior. Make it change yourself according to if you acted in such a way that produced a bad result. But don't just think, oh, I'm a terrible person, look what I've done. Okay, I made that mistake, but I will move forward now. And so don't live in the past world of regrets or longing. Sometimes people live in the world of old photographs because that's more real to them. And sometimes when we get old, you find it's the rare soul who lives in the moment. They're living in the world of, oh, when my children were young and when I had my career and so forth. But every moment of our lives has something of value. We can't always be young. We can't always have a period of our life that's carved in stone and fixed. But we can find the peace of the moment, the joy of the moment. Once we were traveling in, Nanda has a work in Italy. We have a spiritual community there. And we were, Jyotish and I have a grown son, but he was small at the time. And we were traveling there, and we were driving through a little village, very poor village. And there was an old couple sitting on the porch of a very dilapidated house. They had these old rickety chairs kind of held together with wire. And they were sitting there, but they were laughing and laughing, old people enjoying the end of their life together. And our son, I was so happy, he said, Mommy, look at those people. If they would be in America, he said, they're so poor, and they're old, and their bodies are bent. But if they would be in America, they wouldn't be so happy. I knew it was true. And I said, no, but they have happiness in themselves, and that's why they're happy. So I was glad he could see that. But to live in not the past, not the future, but in the now, because that's where God's peace is. To live not also with it. So often we think about past failures. Oh, I didn't achieve this test score, or I didn't get the promotion I wanted. We were so happy. We know two women who live in Bangalore, and they're career women. And they both told us separately, they said, we're very good at work because we meditate and we can concentrate very well, and so we're getting ahead. And independently, both of their bosses offered them promotions, more money, but more responsibility and more time at the office. And both of them turned down the promotion. And the boss couldn't believe it. Well, why? Don't you want to earn more money? You're the best one we have in the office. And both of them said, we just told our boss, we like to have the free time. We have other interests in our life beside work. And so we're contented with the less of a lower salary. But to see success in terms of enjoying your life, not just getting ahead, to find fulfillment with your children and your family and your friends, and if you have interest, artistic interest or athletic interest, whatever it might be. But someone once said, at the end of people's lives, the last words that very few people say are, I wish I had spent more time at the office. To find peace, we have to become the captain of our own ship and not take our values from others, but say, this is what's important to me, and this is what I will do with my life. And Swami Kriyananda, as you heard the song that our wonderful choir sang earlier, and these people have only been singing together for a year, 2 years? A couple years, but that's how beautiful they sing. And this was in Tulasi, who plays the guitar. I mean, it's so beautiful to see that come together. But to be able to realize that it's only in the ability to see the moment and to focus your mind. And one of the songs that Swami wrote, in fact, he called this Ananda song, his theme song, Go On Alone. Walk like a man, the words are, even though you walk alone. Why court approval once the goal is known? Let come who will, but if they all go home, your soul knows the answer. Go on alone. And so to find true peace, we have to be able to say, what are my values? I read another story. This was a story true story written by a man. It happened to be a Christian missionary who was working in China at the time. And when the Chinese communists took over, and I'm not trying to diss China or Chinese communists, it's just a story that came to mind that always stayed with me about being true to yourself. And there was, the communist soldiers surrounded this one congregation of Christians. And they came in and they said, if you will go up to the altar and denounce your belief and spit on that Bible, we will let you leave. But if you refuse, we will kill you. And so, one by one, they all went up. And they spat on the Bible. And they denounced their religion. But there was one young woman who said, my integrity is more important than my life. Do what you will, but I will not renounce what I believe in. And the soldiers turned around. First they shot everyone else, and then they killed her. That she could go with a sense of personal integrity, while the rest of them had sold their souls. And so if we can, to find peace, we need to be able to stand in the truth of who we are, in the moment, not past, not future, not what other people expect of us, but who we are. And to say, I come to you, God. And it's only in this moment that I can feel the joy of your presence. And this is the truth. This is the beauty of meditation. For those of you who, perhaps some of you already have a practice of meditation, if you don't, it's a wonderful addition to your life. It will change everything. Fears, worries, ability to concentrate, even your health. I've seen these things. I've been following and practicing these teachings for 50 years. And it's the truth. It's not a joke. It's not a hype. It's not a sales pitch. It's the truth. And so I would like to just conclude, and then we'll have a little break. This is something, again, that Swami Kriyananda wrote about peace of mind. And one aspect of our Guru's teachings was the practice of affirmation, where we repeat a word formula. And Master said we do it the way he taught us. You do it 4 times. First in a loud demonstrative voice, then you repeat it again in a normal speaking voice, and you repeat it again in a whisper, and then the 4th time you repeat it again mentally only. But these 4 levels of repetition take it deeper and deeper into the consciousness. So I want to ask everyone to sit up straight, to focus at the point between the eyebrows, the seat of inner peace and soul awareness. And first listen to these words, and then we will affirm together these words of Peace of Mind by Swami Kriyananda. Peace of mind is the result not of money in the bank, but of prayer and meditation. The more one contacts God in meditations, the more he feels descending upon him a blanket, as it were, of inner peace, cooling his body, calming his restless impulses, and thrilling his nerves with ever new delight. Peace is like a weightless waterfall, washing away all worries and bestowing a new, glad sense of confidence. Peace of mind is his who knows that God is his only treasure. Now let's affirm together. Please repeat after me, as I mentioned, first in a loud voice, then in normal speaking, and whispering, and finally mentally. Please repeat after me. From pools of inner silence, I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
Again, in speaking voice. From pools of inner silence,
From pools of inner silence,
I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
Whispering. From pools of inner silence, I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.
Mentally only, silently. From pools of inner silence, I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace. From pools of inner silence, I sip the sparkling waters of thy peace.